آزادی بیان
言论自由
free speech.
As we know, in American politics, money speaks very loudly, and so you have SOPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act, with Hollywood in particular, lobbying, producing, leading to or leading towards a bill which is clearly very overbroad in the way it's drawn, and then being driven back by Northern California, by Silicon Valley. So it's almost as if one great private power, those of Northern California, Silicon Valley, drive back the private powers of Southern California, of Hollywood, and government, Congress is the theater in which that battle is played out.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's exactly how laws are made in the United States through battles between private interests. And you have to hope that the private interests are balanced enough on each side so that somehow the people end up being the beneficiaries. But it doesn't always work that way.
And in the case of SOPA specifically?
In SOPA specifically, it so happened that an advantageous moment for Silicon Valley to assert itself and try and gain some political leverage over its rival happened to coincide with the public interest. But it was really a different conversation. But counting on that system to always work that way is dangerous. And the moment that Silicon Valley would agree on something that isn't in the public interest, then we're in trouble.
Do we have an example where Hollywood and Silicon Valley agree on something that isn't in the public interest?
Not yet. They disagree on so much that not quite yet. Although, they could very easily agree on a modified version of SOPA that makes someone else pick up the bill. Hollywood wants to take piracy down to zero. I mean, who wouldn't? Silicon Valley wants its cost to be zero, so they could sort of gang up on somebody else. In fact, they talk about the credit card companies who are fighting a number of other battles. And, I'm not going to say the credit card companies can't fight for themselves, because they can. But that is kind of a good example of where another part, they'll try and turn everything over to somebody else.
But it's a pretty perilous, as it were, guardian of global freedom of expression online if you have to rely on, so to speak, a balance of power between various private interests.
That is exactly what I think. I'll give you another example. Google is, in some ways, one of the companies that's done the most to protect the norms of online freedom. But relying on Google too much is extremely dangerous. For example, Google was a big backer of net neutrality until they decided to do a deal with Verizon for the Android system, and Android was suddenly more important to them. And then they continued to be a backer of net neutrality, except for when it came to wireless, basically. They sort of started to modify their positions. And that's the problem here, I think. It's very important to distinguish the principle of internet freedom and the principle of Silicon Valley should win all the battles it's involved in. Because sometimes they're the same thing, but sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
And I think increasingly there's going to be a great challenge as the larger internet companies mature, develop more stable monopolies, become interested in defending their market positions. Their interests, I think, are going to begin to change. And in fact, you can see that they already are changing. Twitter is a great example of this. You can see it in action. Twitter moving from a force of speech and rebellion, which they still sort of are, to taking on positions of greater responsibility, but really positions that allow its global expansion in a way that doesn't offend sovereign governments.